I am Michael, a 25-year-old working in a busy office. My life is a mixture of excitement and stress. Every morning, I wake up early and drink coffee to start my day. I enjoy long walks in the park and reading mystery novels. Those quiet moments help me feel calm before I enter the office world. I come from a small town where I graduated from university. I have always wanted to do something big, something different. Now, I work as a marketing assistant in a big company in the city. It's thrilling but also hard. Every day is full of challenges at work. I feel the pressure when I step into the office. My boss, Karen, is very demanding. She has high expectations, and I worry that I may not meet them. Sometimes, I find myself doubting my skills. I look at my colleagues, and they seem so confident and capable. They talk easily in meetings, sharing ideas without fear. I wish I could be like them. My current goal is to grow in my job, but it feels tough. I want to impress my boss and become a better worker, but my anxiety often holds me back. Every week brings a new challenge. Last week, I had to prepare a presentation for a meeting. I spent hours working on it, but when I stood in front of everyone, the lights were bright and my hands were shaking. My mind went blank, and I forgot my notes. It felt awful. Karen asked questions after my presentation, and I struggled to answer them. I felt embarrassed, and my heart sank. How can I grow if I cannot even speak in front of my team? I want to learn and be strong. I want to show everyone that I can do this. This problem makes me anxious. I fear that I might lose my job. I don't want to let my family down. They believe in me and always encourage me to follow my dreams. My mom says that overcoming fear is part of growing. She often remembers her own challenges. When she moved to the city, she didn't know anyone or anything about her new job, but she worked hard to learn and did well. I want to have that courage too. Sometimes, I try to think positively. I remind myself that every mistake is a chance to learn. But my self-doubt still creeps in. Late at night, I sit in my room, thinking about everything. I wonder if I should change jobs. But then I remember how I felt when I got hired. I felt proud. I want to succeed in this position and grow. At the same time, I want to make friends at work. Building relationships seems challenging, especially when I feel shy. I am at a point where I need to change. I want to put my fear behind me and grow. Perhaps I could practice speaking in front of a mirror or join a speaking club. I could ask my colleagues for help. They seem friendly. If only I could push the fear away. I realize now that I need to take small steps to overcome my challenges. It will take time and effort, but I am motivated. Time is my ally, and I know I must believe in myself. I am ready to face these challenges head-on and start my journey toward change. As I settled into my second month at the office, things started to change. At first, I felt happy and excited. But now, a shadow hung over my days. Jenna, my coworker, had begun to make my life difficult. She was on my team and appeared friendly at first, but soon her true colors showed. I noticed small things. She would roll her eyes whenever I spoke in meetings, and she often interrupted me. "Oh please, Michael, we have heard this already," she said one day, laughing. I felt small and embarrassed. Why was she doing this? The tension grew with each passing day. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk, preparing for another presentation. I hoped to impress Karen again after my last mistake. Suddenly, Jenna came over with a sly smile. "You should really see how the others do it, Michael. Maybe try to learn from them," she suggested, her words like sharp arrows. I could feel my stomach twist. Instead of helping, she wanted to make me feel weak. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I felt afraid. What if Karen thought I was not doing enough? I stayed silent, my heart racing. While Jenna slowly eroded my confidence, my boss Karen also added to the weight on my shoulders. One morning, she called me into her office. "Michael, we need to talk about your progress, she said, her voice serious. My heart thudded loudly in my chest. Was I failing? Some feedback came in, and it doesn't look good. Your ideas are often unclear, she stated firmly. I wanted to explain about Jenna's comments, but I worried this would also make me seem weak. Instead, I nodded and muttered, I will do better. Inside, I felt despair. I felt stuck. After that meeting, I struggled even more. I gathered my thoughts, but Jenna's sly comments lingered in my mind. On days when I felt proud of my work, Jenna would rock the boat. That's a nice idea, Michael, but we should perhaps make it more interesting, she would say, dismissing my thoughts in front of the group. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, judging. Each time she spoke to me like that, I became quieter and less confident. I felt I couldn't stand up for myself. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, she would leave me alone. Each evening, I would think about my day while walking home. I felt lost, slowly sinking under the pressure of worry and doubt. Why can't I be like my colleagues? I would ask myself. Some seemed strong, speaking without fear. I wanted to share my ideas and connect with the team but felt a weight holding me down. Jenna's words echoed in my mind. One afternoon, I overheard Jenna laughing with others during lunch. Michael is trying so hard. Isn't it cute? She joked. The laughter around the table cut deep. My cheeks burned with shame. I quickly excused myself, thinking I couldn't bear it any longer. But just as I stepped out of the cafeteria, a small spark came to me. I remembered what my mom said about standing up for myself. This was my moment to fight back. A new feeling grew inside me, growing with hope and determination. I realized I did not want to cower anymore. I wanted to rise, not fall. As the days passed, I felt more and more trapped in my job. The negativity from Jenna made my workplace feel heavy and dark. Each time she made a comment, I noticed my confidence slipping further away. My thoughts became filled with doubt. Maybe I am not good enough, I told myself. I began to hesitate before speaking in meetings and pushed my ideas to the back of my mind. My heart would race, and my palms would get sweaty every time my boss called on me. The fear started to shape how I worked and how I felt about myself. The relentless pressure made it hard to focus on my tasks. I found myself staring at my computer screen for too long, unable to write. My productivity dropped, and I started missing deadlines. Just last week, I failed to submit a report on time, which earned me a stern chat from Karen. You need to sort this out, Michael, she said, her eyes fixated on me. My cheeks burned again, and I promised to try harder, but inside, I felt like I was crumbling. At night, I would lie awake, thinking about work. I could not find peace. Those moments alone made me feel isolated. What if Jenna is right about me? I asked myself as worry clung to my mind. I stopped hanging out with friends and abandoned my hobbies. Reading and walking in the park became rare. I even canceled plans for dinner with my best friend, Sarah, because I just felt too exhausted. I wanted to disappear, hoping the problems would somehow fix themselves. One day, while at work, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Worried about you, Michael. Can I help? I stared at it long before replying. I wanted to tell her everything but feared sounding weak. Instead, I typed back, I'm okay. Just busy. Within, I felt sadness growing. Why couldn't I open up? I realized then how Jenna's words and my silence had shut me off from everyone. In those moments of solitude, the idea of quitting my job started to creep into my mind. I thought about what it would be like to leave everything behind. Maybe it would be easier. Perhaps I belong in a different place, far from the stress and the mockery. This thought felt both comforting and scary. An escape seemed like a solution, yet I wondered if running away would be giving up. Would I ever find a place that made me feel strong? Would I disappoint my family if I quit? These questions clashed inside me. As I sat at my desk one afternoon, a familiar feeling rose in me like an unwanted wave. I sat quietly, freezing as Jenna walked past, glancing down at her phone, smirking softly. I felt that anger push out the sadness for the first time. No, this is not okay, I told myself, clenching my fists under the table. I wanted to fight back, but fear gripped me tightly. How could I stand up to someone like Jenna? From deep within, another voice told me I had to try. I could not keep feeling lost like this. I needed to choose a way forward, even if I didn't know what it would look like yet. In this moment of uncertainty, I decided that I could confront my fears. I needed to find my voice again. This was a fight worth having, and only I could change my story. The day of the big meeting arrived, and I felt an overwhelming mix of nerves and dread. Karen told us we would present our work to the higher-ups, and I was responsible for sharing my marketing ideas. I spent days preparing, writing, and rewriting my notes. But as I stood in front of my colleagues, I felt stuck in a nightmare. My mind blanked. I could see Jenna smirking at the back of the room, and the thought made my heart race. As I started to speak, my voice trembled. Hi everyone, I said, stumbling over my words. The more I spoke, the more I felt I had forgotten everything. I glanced at my notes, but they seemed like jumbled letters, impossible to read. Jenna took the opportunity to lean over to a coworker beside her. This should be interesting, she whispered loudly enough for me to hear. Her words cut deep. I felt hot tears prickle my eyes, but I forced myself to keep going. Suddenly, my boss, Karen, interrupted me. Michael, maybe we can move to the next point, she suggested. Her tone was gentle, but the embarrassment felt crushing. I nodded, my cheeks burning. I realized that I was failing in front of everyone. This was the pivotal moment when I hit my breaking point. I stood there, frozen and ashamed, questioning every choice that brought me to this moment. I left the meeting room quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. Tears streamed down my face as I walked that long hallway. You can do this. You have to be strong, I whispered to myself. But doubt whispered back even louder. You are not cut out for this, it said. I felt like drowning in a deep ocean of fear and insecurity. I stumbled to my desk and buried my head in my hands. My world felt dark and heavy. Jenna's laughter echoed in my mind. At that moment, I felt betrayed not only by Jenna but also by my fear. Why did I let her win? I had worked hard and cared about my job, but every ounce of confidence was draining away like sand slipping through my fingers. This was not only about the meeting, this was my entire career hanging by a thread. I had spent weeks doubting myself and hiding in the shadows, but as I sat there, I felt something different rise within me. Wasn't I worth fighting for? I remembered my dreams and the excitement I felt when I first got this job. This was my chance to make a difference. With every tear that fell, part of my fear washed away. I took a deep breath and stood up. The air felt a bit lighter now. I decided I could not remain silent any longer. With a resolve slowly growing in my chest, I walked straight to Karen's office. Each step felt heavy, but I pushed ahead. I had to say something. I couldn't let Jenna or my doubts keep me down anymore. I paused outside Karen's door, hesitating for just a moment. Then I knocked. When Karen said to come in, I took a deep breath and opened the door. My hands shook slightly, but I was ready to speak up. I had reached my turning point. It was time for change, and I would find my voice. In that moment, I told myself that I was not alone. I deserved to stand my ground and fight back. I was ready to face my fears, no matter the outcome. Time to turn this situation around. I took a deep breath and entered Karen's office. The moment I sat down, nerves filled my stomach again. My palms were sweaty as I faced her. Karen, I need to talk to you about some issues at work, I started, but my voice trembled. The weight of my fear crushed my words. Karen looked up, her expression serious. What's on your mind, Michael? Before I could continue, Jenna entered the office. Her smile disappeared when she saw me. "Oh, I didn't know you were here," she said, her tone tight. I wanted to speak out, to say that she was part of the problem, but the words were trapped inside me. Instead, Jenna interrupted me. "You might want to think before you speak, Michael, as it might create more trouble," she replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. It hurt to hear her words. My heart raced in response. At this moment, all my confidence crumbled again. I turned back to Karen, ready to explain. But then Karen spoke. "Jenna, can we please discuss this later?" Her voice was firm. I felt relieved, but the tension hung thick in the air. I needed to gather my thoughts, but Jenna's presence loomed large. Suddenly, the fear of failure weighed heavily on my chest. Will this change anything? I wondered. However, Karen turned back to me, her brows furrowing slightly as if questioning what I had to say. "Well, Michael, if something is wrong, we should handle it together. Do you need support?" As I sat there, a wave of anxiety hit me. What if this helped my situation? But what if confessing made everything worse? That fear began to spin in my mind. I felt lost, caught between wanting to stand up for myself and fearing what might happen if I did. In the back of my mind, I could hear Jenna. What would happen when I finally raised my voice? My voice felt trapped in my throat, wanting to escape but unsure how. After what seemed like forever, I barely managed to say, I think I am struggling with my responsibilities." It felt so weak, so timid. The thought of losing my job terrified me. Karen listened but didn't speak, leaving the space heavy with silence. My heart pounded. Jenna's back was to me, and I felt closed off, almost invisible as she glanced to see me faltering. Regret washed over me. Why didn't I show more strength? I wanted to change my position, yet I felt stuck precisely where I was. Moments later, Karen leaned back in her chair. "Michael, I need you to be honest. We are a team. If you are facing issues, I need to know," she said. All that pressure was creating waves of discomfort. I felt shame and worry riding high inside me. Instead of opening up, clouds of fear rolled in again. What felt like an earthquake in my chest was actually just my struggle to let out what I held inside. Anxiety spiraled. I imagined losing my job and then seeing disappointment in my parents' eyes. I felt so far from the person I wanted to be. Leaving felt like the only answer, but I knew running away would be giving up, something I didn't want for myself anymore. As silently as the pain had come, it now seemed as if it would swallow everything whole. I sat in this emotional low, overwhelmed, and all I wanted was a way to escape this pressure. I anticipated the worst. My heartbreak made every breath feel heavy. Burdened, I turned toward Karen with my heart pounding, desperately searching for hope in this dark time. Would I find it? Or would everything continue to fall apart? Sitting in Karen's office, uncertainty washed over me like a cold wave. I could feel my heart racing wildly. With all the pressure pulling me down, I wanted to yell out everything I had kept quiet. Yet, part of me still hesitated. Just then, a strong thought pierced through my fear. This was my moment to change everything. I needed to stop waiting for things to improve. I realized that I had the power to shape my own story. Looking into Karen's eyes, I took a deep breath, letting some of the weight lift. "Karen, I know I have not been myself. I feel lost at work, and I struggle with Jenna's actions. I worry about not meeting my goals." Saying those words made me feel scared yet free at the same time. The truth was out, and my fear began to melt away. Karen nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you for sharing, Michael. A lot of people go through rough patches. You are not alone. We all have moments of doubt," she replied gently. In that moment, I felt a little spark ignite in my heart. It was comforting to hear that I was not the only one dealing with challenges. After a brief pause, she continued, "You have great ideas, but we need to work together. Try speaking more often, and take your time. Every great person has faced difficulties. What matters is how we respond. Her words carried hope, stirring something inside me. I began to see that struggle did not mean failure. As I reflected on what she said, I realized I could not let Jenna's negativity keep me from being the best version of myself. I wanted to stand tall and be proud of who I was. A new belief began to grow: I could confront my challenges. I remembered my mother always said, "To grow, you have to fight through." This moment felt like my battle. Karen offered to help me develop my skills further, suggesting we could do practice sessions together. As I left her office, I felt a surge of determination. I wanted to believe in myself. I wanted not only to survive in my job but also to thrive. The road ahead would be tough, but it was time to embrace the difficulty. That night, when I got home, I sat at my desk and wrote down my plans. I needed clearer goals and steps. I promised to work on my public speaking. I would practice writing and presenting my ideas. I envisioned walking into the office with purpose, not fear. Each step I took would make me stronger. The anxiety that had clouded my heart began to clear. I knew there would be difficulties with Jenna and other office challenges, but I also knew I had the strength to handle them now. I could not let fear rule my choices any longer. It was time to channel my emotions into action, turning every doubt into determination. Facing forward with a new mindset, I felt a warmth ignite within. I looked toward tomorrow with excitement. I raised my chin, telling myself that my moments of struggle were stepping stones to growth. It was my choice to make a change and take action. I was ready to reclaim my narrative and show my true potential. Now, I would fight for myself and my career with fresh energy. My journey was just beginning, and I felt hopeful about what came next. Falling action. The days after my conversation with Karen were filled with new energy and hope. I started approaching my work differently. Instead of allowing anxiety to rule my thoughts, I focused on my goals with determination. Each morning, I reviewed my set plans and reminded myself that I could grow. I realized that every small step I took counted. Whether it was practicing speaking in front of a mirror or jotting down my ideas, I was building confidence. One afternoon, I decided it was time for another meeting with my team. I prepared myself well. As I entered the room, I could see Jenna lingering at the back, her usual smirk replaced with a thoughtful look. I stood at the front, my heart pounding but stronger now. I began to present our marketing ideas with clarity and passion. As I spoke, I saw familiar faces nodding in agreement, and it felt like I was finally connecting with my colleagues. Halfway through the presentation, I noticed Jenna watching with a different expression. I remembered her earlier behavior and felt a mix of challenge and determination. I want to show her how I have changed, I thought. I refused to let past moments of fear hold me back. With each sentence, I built on my confidence. I could feel the support from my team wrapping around me like a warm blanket, making every word easier to speak. After the meeting, some colleagues came up to congratulate me. "Great job, Michael," one of them said enthusiastically. I felt a smile break across my face. It was difficult to believe that I almost missed this opportunity because of my doubt. Each compliment filled me with pride and the realization that I was finding my place in this team. I was finally stepping into the role I always wanted. Jenna approached me as everyone else started to leave. "You did surprisingly well today," she said, her tone somewhat softer. I sensed that she was acknowledging my progress, even if the compliment seemed half-hearted. I took a breath and replied, "Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate your perspective." I could feel my inner strength growing. I no longer needed to feel defeated by her. A few months ago, I would have stumbled under her words, but now I stood firm. Later that evening, I sat down to reflect on the day. I realized how combating my fears led to real growth. Each challenge taught me something new. Embracing my journey made the future feel open and full of potential. I had learned that it was okay to be vulnerable and share struggles. This sharing brought me closer to my colleagues and opened doors to their support. I wrote in my journal, "I have the power to write my story." This mantra drove my sense of purpose. Stress would come and go, but how I faced it would shape my experience. I was determined to remain proactive in my growth. I no longer saw my job as something to fear, but rather as a chance to thrive and learn. The path ahead was brighter, filled with possibilities and new beginnings. I wanted to keep moving forward, growing into the version of myself I always wished to be. My heart felt lighter, and with every step, I learned to embrace the journey, the struggles, the triumphs, and everything in between. Happiness was possible, and I was ready to claim it as my own. The days following my presentation brought a wave of change. My mindset was shifting, and I felt empowered to set boundaries for myself at work. With each passing hour, the weight of uncertainty began to lift. I realized I deserved respect, and it was time to stand firm against any negativity. I made a commitment to address the issues I faced, especially with Jenna and our work dynamic. The next morning, I walked into the office, determined and ready. I saw Jenna at her desk, and for the first time, the sight did not intimidate me. I approached her, heart pounding just a bit. "Jenna, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her face showing surprise, but nodded. "Sure, what's up?" she replied, sounding curious. Once we were in a quiet spot, I gathered my thoughts. "I want to discuss how we communicate at work. Sometimes, your comments make it hard for me to share my ideas," I said, keeping my tone calm. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt a mix of fear and relief. This was a moment I had imagined countless times but never acted upon. Jenna stared at me for a moment before responding. "I didn't realize you felt that way," she said slowly, her brows knitting together. Part of me expected her to react defensively, but instead, she appeared thoughtful. "I suppose I can be a little harsh. I will try to change that." Hearing this surprised me. I had expected denial, but perhaps Jenna was capable of growth. With that encounter behind me, I also decided to address the situation with Karen. I gained strength from that earlier conversation and knew I had to be cautious but honest. Later in the week, I asked Karen for a private meeting. I felt nervous but reminded myself that my voice mattered. Once I sat across from her, I took a breath and began to express my feelings. "Karen, I want to talk about the feedback I have received and the environment at work," I admitted. Karen listened attentively, and as I shared my concerns about the team atmosphere and necessary boundaries, I could see her nodding. "I appreciate you being so open, Michael. It is important to foster a safe workplace," she said with sincerity. I felt supported and understood. This moment shifted everything. I was no longer hiding from my struggles. I was facing them head-on. As I shared my thoughts, I felt lighter, as if the weight I carried was slowly dispersing. I noticed my confidence rising within me. It was no longer a task because I wanted my voice to be heard. After our meeting, Karen assured me that steps would be taken to address these issues with the team. She encouraged me to reach out if I needed further support. The feedback from my colleagues began to change. Some colleagues stepped forward to share their own thoughts, echoing feelings of discomfort with the workplace atmosphere. It felt good to know that I was not alone in this struggle. We began to discuss solutions together, creating a more uplifting environment. It made me realize that others shared similar experiences. The shift in the office became palpable. People began treating one another with more respect. I felt empowered as I saw the positive changes grow. Standing up made a difference, not only in my life but in the lives of my colleagues. Every progress we made reinforced our strength as a team. It confirmed to me once again that boundaries were not just personal, they helped build a healthier workplace. Every small victory encouraged my growth. I learned that assertiveness did not come from fear but rather from a belief in my worth. It was exhilarating to take control of my situation. I looked around my workplace differently now, no longer feeling suppressed. I was ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms. In the weeks following my conversation with Karen, I felt a shift in the air at work. Each day, I took the steps I had committed to. I practiced my speaking skills more, and sharing my ideas became less daunting. One afternoon, I was assigned an important project, creating a marketing plan for our new product launch. This was my opportunity to shine, and I was determined to give it my all. As I dove into the project, I felt excitement bubbling inside me once again. I began by gathering feedback from my colleagues, and to my surprise, they were eager to help. One of my co-workers, Tim, pulled me aside one day during lunch. "I've seen you working hard, Michael. If you ever need support on the project, just ask. I believe in your ideas," he said earnestly. His words warmed my heart and reinforced my belief that I was not alone. A wave of gratitude washed over me. Simple yet meaningful moments like these fueled my determination. With renewed energy, I set to work on the marketing plan. I organized my thoughts, laid out the strategy, and worked late nights at home, refining every detail. Each step felt important, like building blocks toward success. I made sure to incorporate feedback from my team as we brainstormed ideas together. This collective effort made our plan stronger and helped me feel connected, which was something I had been missing before. Finally, the day arrived for our presentation. This was my moment to shine, and I wanted to give it everything I had. I dressed sharply, ensuring I felt confident. As I walked into the meeting room, I took a deep breath. I smiled at Tim, who gave me a thumbs up, boosting my confidence even more. I began presenting our ideas, focusing on the strengths we had crafted as a team. My voice echoed with clarity in the room. The energy shifted, you could feel everyone's attention locking onto my words. I explained not just the plan but the vision we had aimed to achieve. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. I could see the surprise in some eyes. "Excellent job, Michael," Karen said, leaning forward. "This is impressive work." A wave of relief and pride surged through me. Hearing those words solidified my growth. I had stepped up, and it felt wonderful. The project wasn't just mine, it reflected a collective effort and opened new doors for us. After the meeting, I felt a rush of excitement. Colleagues came up to congratulate me. Jenna was at the back of the room, and for the first time, she approached me with a sincere smile. "Great job today, Michael. I misjudged your abilities," she admitted. That moment was powerful. I had turned a negative into a positive, and it symbolized the trust one had grown into. Reflecting on this experience, I realized that progress doesn't merely come from making big moves, it also comes from embracing small wins and building strong connections. Every supportive comment, every moment of collaboration, reinforced the importance of teamwork and respect. This journey had taught me something vital. I had the power to change my environment and the strength to face challenges head-on. No matter how toxic a workplace feels, finding support and connection is key. I could take pride in my work and see my accomplishments built on a foundation of collaboration and unity. And now, as I sat at my desk, a sense of peace enveloped me. I felt ready to face whatever came next. The emotional mountains I had climbed were behind me. Each little victory taught me to rise above, making each next moment feel unstoppable. This was the start of a bright future in my career, one filled with hope and endless possibilities. Resolution. As the weeks passed after the successful presentation, I found myself in a different place both mentally and emotionally. The burden of anxiety had lifted among my colleagues, and I felt more secure in my role. Yet, a part of me sensed that my journey was not complete. I wanted to ensure that everything I had learned would last beyond just little victories. I needed to make a solid decision about my future. One afternoon, I took time to reflect on everything that had happened. I recognized how far I had come since my first days in the office. I remembered my struggles with nervousness, the overwhelming dread of confronting Jenna, and that feeling of isolation. Now, I was actively participating in meetings and collaborating with others. I had found my voice, and I was believed in. This reminded me just how crucial it was to stand up for myself. On the other hand, I knew that an environment could easily change. Problems might return without constant effort and monitoring. I wanted a workplace that inspired me to keep growing. With that thought in mind, I set aside time to visit a career counselor. I wanted to explore future opportunities that would let me hone my skills in a more supportive setting. During my appointment, we discussed my career goals. I shared how passionate I was about marketing and how I desired to take on more responsibility. Together, we created a plan that included seeking new challenges and applying for positions that aligned more with my aspirations. As we talked, I felt a sense of excitement growing within me. I realized there really was a world beyond my current job, and that potential was so close to reaching my hands. Once I made the decision to pursue other opportunities, I felt empowered. I was no longer bound by the fear of leaving. Rather, I embraced the concept of seeking a workplace where I would truly thrive. I was ready to let go of past anxieties. My new mindset prepared me completely. It was important to put myself first in my career. During this transition, I made sure to maintain strong connections with my current colleagues. Jenna and I even chatted at lunch a few times since we reached an understanding. I was also grateful to Tim, who offered support throughout the project. Discussions with them inspired lasting change. I knew I would go into meetings with strong ideas and that my mental strength would follow wherever I went. I communicated openly with my coworkers about my journey forward, sharing tips to help one another keep growing. With my eyes set on the future, I began feeling energized, much to my delight. I realized that the challenges at my previous job were learning lessons that I could carry forward. Through this experience, I regained the confidence to face obstacles and believe in my abilities. I knew that whether I stayed at my current job or moved to a new one, my commitment to self-improvement would remain steadfast. In the end, the most vital lessons I learned were about myself. I learned the importance of advocating for my needs and surrounding myself with individuals who uplift and support one another. With hope in my heart, I stepped out into this new chapter, ready to embrace opportunities that aligned with my true self. The journey had shaped me, and I felt hopeful for what lay ahead. My story was still unfolding, and I was in control of its next chapters. In the weeks that followed my plan to seek new opportunities, I took action and applied to several positions. Each application felt like a step closer to building the career I truly wanted. I spent weekends polishing my resume and practicing my interview skills. I remembered how nervous I used to be, but now I was ready to embrace this challenge with my newfound confidence. I focused on presenting the best version of myself to potential employers. One afternoon, while I was waiting for a response from one of the companies I applied to, I had a thoughtful moment. I reflected on what I learned during my time in the difficult office environment. Instead of dwelling on the past, I realized that every step, including the good and the bad, shaped me into a stronger person. I wrote in my journal that day, "Challenges do not define me, my response to them does." This shift in mindset opened a door to real growth. A few weeks later, I received a call that changed everything. I applied for a marketing coordinator position at a company that values teamwork and creativity. When I picked up the phone, my heart raced. "Michael, we would like to invite you for an interview next week," the voice said. I felt excitement wash over me. This was my chance. I knew I had to put everything I'd learned into action. Preparation became key as I approached the interview date. I practiced responses to possible questions and even reached out to previous colleagues and mentors for advice. The support I now had was incredible, reminding me that being part of a team is powerful. I headed into the interview with a smile, determined and focused. It was my moment to shine, and I began to realize how much I had grown. When I walked into the interview room, I felt calm and collected. I was ready to show them who I was, a capable candidate who could bring real value to their team. The conversation flowed smoothly, and I shared my ideas openly. With every response I gave, I felt more at ease. I even felt the connection with the interviewers as we discussed their vision for the company and how I could support that. Days later, the call I received was the best news yet. "Michael, we are pleased to offer you the position of marketing coordinator." I could hardly believe it. I felt a rush of joy and excitement fill me. This was not just a new job, it was a new beginning. It felt as though everything I worked so hard for was finally coming together. As I prepared to transition to my new role, I remembered the importance of setting clear boundaries and maintaining a supportive network. I would carry those lessons with me as I adapted to the exciting responsibilities ahead. I wanted to ensure this new environment was a place where I could express myself and contribute without fear. Looking ahead, I felt hopeful and empowered. I had learned how to navigate challenges and advocate for myself in ways that would benefit me for a lifetime. I embraced the future, knowing that it belonged to me. I vowed not to forget the strength I found within, turning anxiety into courage and challenges into opportunities. As I walked into my new workplace for the first time, I could sense the lively atmosphere. Colleagues smiled and greeted me warmly. I found my place among them, knowing I was empowered to make a difference. I felt like I was stepping into a community that would help me grow. This was my chance to continue learning and inspiring others. It felt wonderful. My journey was finally unfolding the way I had always hoped. The future felt bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms.